Anyway, we have a few things I wanted to check out. First, I wanted to look at these rappers in Spain. They're basically, apparently, I heard a little bit about this, but again, I'm not great with European foreign policy, but there's a rapper that was arrested in Spain, and it's caused a massive protest, and I know nothing about it, so I wanted to watch it with you guys and see what's going down in Spain.
For many years, people here in Catalonia have been protesting for their independence. But this week, they've been demonstrating for another reason: to protect freedom of speech.
We're walking to a big square, tensions are rising, and the police are waiting just ahead.
A mi m'agrada molt el tema de sortir al carrer a lluitar per el que a nosaltres ens interessa realment, perquè els polítics poden expressar moltes opinions, però el que realment el poble vol o el que realment el poble desitja sempre és silenciat, d'acord?
Okay, so it's against the crown. So from what you know, it was the fact that it was about the fact that this rapper spoke against the crown in Spain, so now he's just been thrown in prison because he said something mean about the king or whatever. Right? Am I on point about that? Okay. So absolutely that's ridiculous. Absolutely that's stupid. He should be able to say whatever he wants about the king. Obviously there's things like with slander and stuff of that sort, but if he wants to go up there and say like the king sucks, he's awful, he should like retire and go away forever, the monarchy is awful, and he looks ugly, he should be able to say whatever he wants, obviously. Free speech protection is 100% of the way.
Estem tots aquí
Rights to freedom of
perquè han
speech.
tancat el Pablo Hasél a la presó per cantar un rap on deia que el rei ens roba, i no és cap mentida.
For glorifying terrorism, can anybody send me the song that he sung that was somewhat glorifying terrorism, quote unquote? Because if he sung a song about like, let's all go do massive terror attacks on March 17th or something like that, then obviously that's different. But from what I know, I don't think a lot of people would be on the streets to protest in favor of his release if that's what happened.
Known for his radical anti-establishment criticism, rapper Pablo Hasél has been jailed for 9 months, convicted of insulting the Spanish king and glorifying terrorism in...
Okay, so he's convicted of 2 things: insulting the Spanish king and quote-unquote glorifying terrorism. Can anybody send me the song? I mean, I live in America, I can listen to it.
his tweets and lyrics.
Okay, so the lyrics are, "Hey tyrant, this is not just for your father. The Republican scream is going to fill your eardrum."
Hasél was imprisoned.
Wow, that was... that's totally ISIS levels. That's the most milquetoast thing. That's something I would like hear out of the mouth of like a 70-year-old politician in the United States. That's not like intense threat. Like, yeah, this is nothing. This is milquetoast. This feels like it should have no debate around it, period.
Under the 2015 gag law, passed by the then Conservative government, limiting free speech and assembly, all in the name of public safety. But the legislation's so wide-ranging, it's been used to deport asylum seekers, fine people for photographing police officers.
This is the problem. Okay, so this is the same thing that's going on in Myanmar. In Myanmar, they proposed legislation that basically was like, hey, look, we love freedom of speech, but if you do stuff that insults the culture, you can go to jail. With that word, insults the culture, it's so vague, they'll just use it against basically any government critic, anybody against the military junta, do a nighttime raid, and just carry them off because they're critical of the government online, if they aren't, of course, doing their periodical blackouts that are still going on in Myanmar/Burma. And by being as vague as possible with legislation around speech, they're able to just use it like as a club against anyone who disagrees with them, because they can interpret anything anyone says if they want to as being illegal under those laws. And that is why if you ever pass legislation around freedom of speech or around what things you are and aren't allowed to say, you need to be super, super, super specific.
And for posting on social media. And it's not just musicians and activists who've fallen foul of the law. More than 800,000 people have been fined in the past 5 years, and dozens have been handed jail sentences.
Que maten 7 polis por cada George Floyd hoy. Me escapo del cuadrilátero como Roy John, Rude Boy. Nadie llora la muerte de un facha aquí donde estoy.
The Spanish rapper Valtonyc fled to Belgium after he was charged under the law.
Okay, so this song's a little bit more on point. This one's a little bit more specific about the violence. So this one actually, there might be more legal ground for. Actual legal ground.
Have been handed jail sentences.
Que maten 7 polis por cada
Blank 7 cops for every George Floyd.
George Floyd hoy. Me escapo del cuadrilátero.
I escaped the ring like Roy Jones, Rude Boy. Roy Jones is a boxer.
Como Roy John, Rude Boy. Nadie llora la
Nobody mourns the death of a fascist where I'm from.
muerte de un facha aquí donde estoy.
The Spanish rapper
So honestly, this is a lot more specific than the other song that we saw, right? And I do think be like saying such things is not good in my opinion. But you know what? I don't know how I feel about that, because as an American, I think when it comes to artistic interpretation, you need to be extremely, extremely, extremely liberal with speech laws. You know what I mean? So who's this guy? Is this guy's Joseph whatever? Okay, let's see. He's a Spanish rapper. Spanish rapper on the run after Terror Lyrics prison sentence. Tomorrow's the day Oh. Okay, 1 second. Hold on all sides. Tomorrow's the day disobedience is legitimate. It is off. It's been off. Okay. Tomorrow's the day disobedience is legitimate and a duty. Here, no one surrenders. The final words by Spanish rapper before he went on a run on Wednesday. Now his whereabouts are a mystery. An international arrest warrant has been issued, and Spanish social media is up in arms about free speech. The 24-year-old, whose real name is Joseph Miguel Arens Beltran, was due to begin a 3.5-year prison sentence on Thursday for producing lyrics the Spanish courts ruled glorified terrorism and insult the Spanish monarchy. Again, with the insulting of the Spanish monarchy. Look, if somebody directly calls for an act of terror, that's one thing. But if somebody insults the crown, I literally don't care. I could care less. My thing isn't sharing. Like, he could say whatever he wants about the crown, in my opinion. I do not care. I don't care. I live in a country where you could say the most disgusting thing about the president, and as long as it isn't covered by slander, which you need extremely high bar to cross that, or calling for somebody to like kill him, you're good. A good thing for me to always test if a country is like has freedom or not, and this is a good personal test. If you can go in that country and say the leader sucks and shouldn't be the leader, and should no longer be the leader, and should be removed from power. If you can go into a country and say that, and also throw a bunch of other insults at them, then I think that's a good base level test to test the liberty of a country. If you can't do that, then that isn't a good sign. In public, yes, in public. In front of officers. If you can do that, in my opinion, that's a good sign that you're living in a country that's more on the liberal side, more on the quote-unquote freedom side when it comes to speech and freedom of expression. Burning the flag, that's another thing. I think countries, you should be allowed to burn the flag of your country. I think that should be covered by freedom of expression too. In one song he rapped, I want to send a message of hope to Spaniards. ETA is a great nation, a reference to the Basque militant group. The king has a I think there's more legitimacy to the claim of quote unquote supporting terrorism, but you got to be ultra specific with it. And I think this is not enough. Okay, this is not enough. He's not like saying people go commit terror attacks. He just said something vague about them, about a group that they consider a terror group. The king has basically this is like a noose around, has rendezvous at the village square with a noose around his neck, he says in another. The BBC is not responsible for the content of external sites. The musician's appeal to the Spanish court on the grounds that he was protected by his right to freedom of expression was rejected. The defiant tweet in which he calls Spain a fascist state has been retweeted almost 40,000 times, and Free Vanillantic was used to express support for the rapper, featuring in more than 350,000 tweets, largely supporting the musician. Catalonia's ex-leader, recently detained in Germany after himself going into exile, tweeted support for the man. All my affection to you for a difficult decision, but allows you to continue defending values and fundamental freedoms without which there is no democracy. Journalist Fonsi Lazarza wrote, rapper is 24 years old and he has to leave his family to go into exile. He was going to prison for rapping when he was 19, a song in Catalan against the king. In Spain, there are 1,900 politicians charged with corruption. Just 80 are in prison. The BBC is not responsible. You are very brave. Okay, basically a bunch of people praising him. Okay. The case is the latest in a series of convictions of artists, filmmakers, and journalists who have fallen foul of anti-terrorism laws in Spain. Human rights group Amnesty International has called the actions draconian and a sustained attack against freedom of speech. And I tend to agree. Nothing he says is enough for me. You know, if you're gonna arrest somebody for saying something that hurts your fifis, it needs to be a pretty direct call for violence. Look, I'm consistent on this. What Trump said at the day of the Capitol, when he was like, you gotta fight for this, fight for that, we need to go to the Capitol. Even when Rudy said trial by combat, none of that was a direct call for violence, and so he shouldn't go to prison for that. I do think he should have been impeached for that, because I think you don't need to pass criminally get somebody into prison for somebody to be impeached. That is, you don't need the same level for that. But he shouldn't have been criminally placed in prison. So I'm being consistent on this. That same logic, I think, applies here as well.
Rapper Valtonyc fled to Belgium after he was charged under the law back in 2018. He's been in exile ever since. The Spanish authorities tried to have him extradited, but this was rejected by Belgium's top court.
Hell yeah.
¿Cómo te sientes pensando que te han acusado de apología al terrorismo?
Bueno, como ciudadano europeo siento vergüenza porque veo que en un país supuestamente democrático en Europa se están encarcelando raperos, se están encarcelando músicos y la verdad que es bastante vergonzoso que esto esté pasando en Europa y en pleno siglo XXI. Y como músico, pues aparte de vergüenza también siento rabia porque veo que el Estado español está intentando controlar las emociones de la gente, controlar los sentimientos y está intentando controlar la creación artística de los artistas.
¿Conoces a Pablo Hasél y qué opinas del caso?
Entiendo que la gente se sienta identificada con la condena de Hasél porque hoy ha sido Hasél, pero mañana puede ser cualquiera de nosotros, porque al final Hasél no es nadie. Hasél es un chaval que no tiene influencia política, solo no es un político.
In the week since Hassel's detention, the protests supporting him have spread across the country, descending into rioting and looting. The party that put the law forward says that's exactly why it's needed.
Más allá de algunos que intentan defender la figura de Pablo Hasél y de este rapero como de unos actos de libertad de expresión o porque son arte o cultura, y yo entiendo que, bueno, que si ha cometido un delito, lo que hay que hacer pues, es que le caiga todo el peso de la ley como cualquier otro ciudadano, y por eso está totalmente justificado.
Okay, so this isn't a justification for the law. Somebody can be like, something can be illegal and still immoral to lock somebody up over it, right? Just because something is a law doesn't make it morally correct. If I legalize murder, if I legalize theft, if I legalize these things, and then that doesn't make those things then moral. The same way that if I made being homosexual illegal, that doesn't make being homosexual immoral. Saying, well, he broke the law isn't enough. You need to say he broke the law. Okay, now the whole conversation is whether that law is moral or not. That seems to be what the protests are about because they want this person freed. So instead of saying, oh, well, everybody, I mean, it broke the law. Well, why should that be a law? Why should it be a law?
Su prisión no es un artista, es un activista y un agitador, y lo estamos viendo estos días en las calles cómo están agitando a la sociedad para que hayan esas revueltas.
Yeah, they're shaking up society to revolt. But the thing is, when you see riots, when you see that type of stuff on the street, and I've talked about this a million times, that is because of an unattended social issue. In Lebanon, that would be the economy, poverty, corruption. When you see the riots on the street of Lebanon, is it good that those are happening? No. But you're not going to stop it by just shaking your finger and saying, tisk, 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 people of Lebanon, you shouldn't be rioting. That's bad. That's never worked against any social movement ever. The only way you truly will stop riotings from occurring now and occurring in the future is by dealing with the social issue that created them. In the United States, a great example of this would be riots that have occurred as of recent due to the horrible economic inequality between black people and white people, and just generally in the United States, and of course with policing and racial disparities. You don't solve that by just saying, ooh, that's naughty that 6% of the overall protest, 6% of them eventually turn violent. What you do is address the racism and address the inequality if you want that to stop. The same thing applies here. If you want those riots to stop, have an honest conversation about the morality of the law. One that this guy isn't even justifying. He's just saying, well, it's the law, so it is what it is. Human rights are things that are defended by people in many different ways. Sometimes it's through just peaceful protests, but a lot of people will see the violation of their human rights, free speech included, as something that they can use force and able to protect. And it seems that the people on the streets right now are saying that this is a breach of the social contract, so they're going to riot. Is that good that they're rioting? No. But you're not going to solve that rioting by just saying, oh, isn't that naughty?
Revueltas con los adoquines y con las hogueras para alentar el terrorismo callejero.
Look at the words this guy's using. Instead of rioting, it's street terrorism. Terrorism, the word that's associated with ISIS, beheadings, bombings. 9/11. Street terrorism. Instead of riots, it's street terrorism. Ridiculous. Just call it what it is. You're using that word because you're trying to tie this to some of the most disgusting groups in the world, like ISIS or Atomwaffen or what Al-Qaeda, 9/11. You're trying to tie it to those very disgusting organizations by using that word when you could just use the word motorcycle. You could just use the word rioting, which has existed forever.
Algunos opositores.
And by using the word terrorism, what you're doing is you're making an environment where the government can use excessive force. Because once you put that label on people, you're priming people to think, well, this is terrorism. I mean, are you guys want to be soft on terrorism? And then everybody in the room will say, well, I don't want to be soft on terrorism. And so when the government gets out the batons and beats a bunch of protesters brutally, they can turn around and say, well, it was terrorism. Remember, guys? We talked about how this was terrorism. What you're doing is priming the public through the media to be ready to watch their fellow countrymen get beaten brutally. And that's why I never use the word terrorism when describing protesters or riots.
Han dicho que la herencia franquista está presente aún en el poder judicial. ¿Tú crees que está presente en la ley Mordaza del 2015?
Para nada, yo creo que hay mucha gente que no ha pasado página y lo que le interesa es volver a esos momentos o esos años oscuros de la historia de España, dictatoriales, del totalitarismo, para promover lo que decía antes, ¿no? Pues esa idea de que en España no hay democracia, de que en España la democracia tiene una calidad muy débil y que lo que hacen es se aprovechan de ese discurso populista de izquierdas para decir que todavía no se ha cerrado la época de la transición española.
I mean, if you can get arrested for insulting the king, it's kind of hard for you to say you have extremely like good like free speech in a country if you can get arrested for insulting the leadership and the power elite of your country. And I think free speech is a vital part of any democracy. So I think they have a point.
The centre-left coalition that took power last year says it plans to...
Okay, after hearing that rap, I think the right has a good point. Maybe some should be shut down. Not because of like some moral reasons around like threats of violence, but noise pollution.
Revise the law to better protect freedom of speech.
¡Libertad! ¡Pablo Hasél! ¡Libertad para Pablo Hasél, tío! ¡Libertad de expresión!
But it hasn't announced any plans to pardon anyone convicted under it.
¿Tú has parado de escribir canciones?
Ya he grabado 2 discos y me los ha financiado enteros el Estado belga. El gobierno impulsa la cultura, aunque digan cosas que son incómodas para el poder.
O sea que, bueno, ¿tienes esperanza de volver a España
That's cool that they do that.
o a Mallorca pronto?
No sé si tengo esperanza de volver a España o Mallorca, que para poder viajar a España tiene que hacer un salto al siglo XXI, y que pues, es un poco difícil porque aún está en el siglo XIX y aún le falta el siglo XX.
Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely bonkers. Just leave the dude alone. Let him out. That's my position. And I support the protesters on the street opposing this ridiculous crackdown on freedom of speech. The 2015 far-right law should be repealed. I have to end my sub time now because I'm back at uni, so I can't watch as often, but I am here and I'll try to donate subs and biddies. I big love to you, Dylan. I appreciate that. If I'm gonna make this full time, it's gonna be because of supporters like you, and I really appreciate that, Sailor, for sticking with me for 4 whole months. I really do appreciate it. Man, ridiculous. Can we get a 20k channel point option to ban one chatter for 24 hours? That's actually really smart and really funny. And I like that idea for a channel points option. But it would have to be more. It'd have to be like 100. This is what I think about you. This is what I think about you sometimes when you stream.
What's in your pantry?
Well, thank you. I'm not a huge fan of Goya, but thanks.
So he's doing this instead. Come on. How old is this kid? How old is?
This is me. This is me and Ridiculous, circa 3 months ago. I'll be Trump. Ridiculous in chat.
How old is this kid? How old is this kid? Get out of here. Get out of here. Still wearing diapers. I always say, if you don't notice him, you can't hear him. It's my people. But my people want to notice him, so go ahead, get him out of here.
Get him out of here. 24-hour ban.
This is so exciting, isn't it? Like, USA, 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 USA.
Okay, that's funny. Get him out of here. Give me his coat. Give me his coat. Oh, gosh. Still funny. It's funny. It's sad, but it's funny. What's this?
España es el único país de Europa, a excepción de Turquía, que tiene un rapero en la cárcel. Nosotros pensamos que es una vergüenza que por rapear haya alguien que pueda estar en la cárcel.
¿Dirías que España es un país donde hay plena normalidad democrática?
España tiene algunas asignaturas todavía por hacer y que tiene que ver con muchas herencias recibidas del pasado. Tenemos una derecha con un ADN, una genética predemocrática. A diferencia del resto de Europa, aquí el fascismo no fue derrotado. Se tuvo que pactar con él, con la gente que había fusilado, había torturado a los demócratas. Y eso se nota, porque hay que llegar a acuerdos con esa derecha que no ha renegado en buena parte de su pasado Y entonces eso es una anomalía que tiene muchas consecuencias en la democracia. Una de ellas es el secuestro del Poder Judicial. No se está renovando el gobierno de los jueces en España porque lo tiene secuestrado el Partido Popular, que es el partido de la oposición de derechas en España.
Here's a question. How do you think people will be viewed, the people back in the day who ate meat? That's a question. Anyway, let's get to the next story.